Okay, welcome to the second session of Better Each Day. And so what we're talking about this week, we've been going through the gratefulness process, sharing little concepts about how to take care of yourself, how to pay attention to yourself, how to be present, focusing on small little power naps, focusing on places to go that you can go and have those experiences that help you recover. People look at the word recreation in the English version of it, of the term, and they don't really break it down. The term recreation is recreate. That's the root word. And to get away from everything. A lot of people that follow me on social media, they are like, Steve, you're always at these places, where are you going this time? So it becomes a little bit of a journey. Last weekend, I did 10.5 miles, about 1,300 feet in elevation. So there's this huge waterfall called Tumalo, and that is like at the base of this one little climb, and it drops, I don't know, 400 feet, something like that. So it's a pretty cool waterfall. And of course you can go downstream, but for whatever reason, I needed a workout. So I wanted to go up and get some elevation. So from that little lookout place, it turned out that when you go upstream, you go through these gorges and everything. Good morning, Steiner. Glad to see you.
Good morning.
And
how do you do?
We're going upstream through to see what's above Tumalo. And I didn't even see on all trails. I didn't know that there was anything else up there. So I'm just kind of following my instinct. Turns out that there was another 3 miles of gorges, and not tall waterfalls. So the drops weren't big, but they will double tier. And the very top one at the very top of the mountain was a triple tier waterfall. So if you haven't seen, it's on Facebook, but here's the key thing is I had this goal. So I had my pack. I had a huge thermos. I always carried my thermos of coffee, and I had a protein bar. So I was hungry along the way, and I was actually wanting to stop and have coffee, but I kept pressing because I wanted to keep my heart rate up. And so I push for another 3 miles of, 1,000 feet of climb, of elevation. But I had this goal in mind, and my goal was that when I get to the very top, to the peak, where the trail ended, then that's where I get to have my coffee. That's where I'm going to take, quote, my lunch break and sit down and enjoy that protein bar. And my mind was sitting there. It's kind of like the carrot, you have to keep the carrot in front of the horse. And so I use those kinds of motivations for me, whether it's just, what I call the suck. Okay. That's an old Marine term. Any place you go as a Marine, growing up with my dad, that was a common term, is they always post you at the place that's the ugliest or most horrible place on the planet, because that's where Marines thrive, and that's where they function best, is in the suck. Okay. So it's a term where you learn to embrace rugged or difficult environments. And so that's all part of my mindset. And how do I get myself through the climb and through, what do you want to call it? Your quads and your lungs wanting to blow up and stuff like that, because you're, doing your workout. And what I do is I put a carrot up there in front of me, right? And my carrot is I get to have the coffee. So I know what the coffee is. I love the taste of the coffee. I love the smell of the coffee. And I get to have the combination of that with a protein bar. And so those are cool. But then I have in my mind this imagination of, where am I going to get to have this at? And because I've not been on the trail before, I don't know. So I've got this imagination of this unknown place that's just the top of the trail. It's on my trail map. It just says finish line, right? And I don't know what the finish line is going to look like. So there's this kind of intrigue. There's this curiosity. There's this excitement of, what does the top of the trail of this mountain look like? And as I'm going up the trail, I'm right next to these river that's, some of it's a gorge, some of it's waterfalls. And it's this place where I'm just like, wow. And it's every time you come around the next corner, there's this next experience of, wow, this is really cool. Wow, this is really beautiful. And I'll stop and grab a picture, maybe do a quick video, but I keep my pace up, right? And that to me is the way that you get to do life. Okay. That's a small, Sabrina, is that called a metaphor, or is that an analogy? I always get mixed up between the two. And I know you've got
analogy, I think, is
this about the same.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not
Okay.
quite sure.
All right. Well, I think if I remember right, a metaphor is when you're making an example of something that's not real. And an analogy is something that is real. I think I remember that.
Analogy. I believe it's comparing something real to something else.
So what I'm trying to say is I take that little event of that one climb, and that's why I try to do my workouts on a regular basis. And I try to do them in interesting places that I don't know where the outcome is. Because that's kind of like what happens to us every day, every week, every month, and every year. We are on this journey together. And that's why we're here. We're focusing on the compass, is how do we focus on where we want to go? And how do you keep your mind engaged? How do you stay inspired? And yesterday, when I had this connection with this gentleman that came to our home here, and we had this really great connection, and he was a life coach as well. And so he was also talking about the difference between what's the difference between motivation and inspiration? Does anybody know? Does anybody know the difference between those two?
I think inspire is doing something, you do something that inspires somebody else. Motivation is trying to tell somebody else to do something that would be good for them.
Okay.
That's my
Okay.
interpretation.
And I think that actually is in line with the perspective that I have in my mind, because motivation is temporary. Inspiration is longer term. I don't want to say permanent, because I don't know if there's anything that's really that. So how do you go from motivating yourself to inspiring yourself? How do you go from motivating someone else to inspiring someone else? And he and I are having that quick conversation. So my training, my life experience, let's put it that way, that I have been able to be through, is I find that the inspiration comes from the bigger carrot. We all have carrots. If you don't have a carrot in front of you, Dr. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, he talks about you have to have that why. You have to have the Greek term logos, which is meaning. So in order to have a life full of meaning, to be meaningful in our life, the reason why people suffer from depression and anxiety and those types of debilitating psychological states that just drain you of your energy and you feel listless. Go ahead, Steiner.
Yes, I think the most effective way to inspire or motivate people must be to lead by an example.
Lead by an example. I love that. And I agree with that, except your motivation or what inspires you. Like I love your new picture, Steiner, that you have on the Viking ship. Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's awesome. And here's the deal. That's very motivational, inspirational for me, because I've studied the Vikings and I think I have a little Viking blood, in my family along the way. But there's just these great stories about these mariners that were in these great vessels going out over a horizon in these very cold, very difficult ocean. And these guys were conquering that kind of stuff way before Columbus and all those other boys that got all the credit with finding the Americas. Turns out the Vikings found it way before. Leif Erikson and his son, was it Red Erikson? I think, and Leif Erikson were already going down through Newfoundland, Canada, and all the way up through Iceland and Greenland, and all the way down into North America in New England. So we found all these Viking outposts. So these guys were doing stuff way before, quote, the other people like Columbus, whatever, that got credit for it.
Yeah, I put that up because now these days we have anniversary of celebrating the Vikings in my area.
Sure.
Because we have one king, it's called Harald Hårfagre, and he was connecting. He was uniting all of Norway into
Okay.
one kingdom.
Sure.
So that's we had many Viking ships coming together as a gathering and an event.
I love it.
So then I came to my mind that I had this picture when I was doing the book launch
Yes.
when I was around on my vacation,
Yep.
and I was in a city, and I took it up again, and yeah.
So let's dig into this a little bit, Steiner, if you will, for me. That picture that you took, you know, and you had the front of the Viking vessel that you can see right there in front of you. I want to understand why that inspires you. And the reason why I want to do this, I want to go through this practice with you, is to distinguish that just because someone, something, some place, or some event inspires one person, it doesn't necessarily inspire someone else.
No.
So what you have to find out is what is it that makes that particular person tick. So tell me about why taking that picture on the Viking vessel. What is it about your heritage? What is it about your country? Tell me what it is that excites you about that picture and why you took it.
Well, you can say that that's the kind of the whole history of my country, and that's my fathers before me have that's it's so they have done the history before us, and really suffered and gone all in, and have been brave and fought the way for us, so we can have a present a convenient life compare what they had.
Sure. So I hear you describing admiration and respect, but deeper than respect. I hear you talking about something called reverence, that you're reverencing your father, your grandfather, or maybe even grandfather, but it's a lineage, that's your heritage, and you have a deep level of admiration, the reverence, but it's deeper than that. It's love of seeing what they did for you so that you could have, you call it the convenient life.
Yeah, and I also always been a boatman and fond of ships and so on. So that's also a part of it. So I think it's a cool way to really have that picture.
So what you're saying, what inspires you is your heritage. There's a deep level of connection that you feel because of the heritage of your family, the heritage of your country, that you get to associate. And then on top of that, you also love ships, vessels. And so combining all that together, what does it make you feel like when you're standing there on top of that Viking vessel?
Well, right when I stood in that cool ship, I kind of felt like a captain.
Yeah. Okay.
Even though it's I don't deserve to take any advantage of it, but because this is history long way back. So even my grandfather wasn't in this part of the history, because it's so long way back. But even it has something to do with my country and my
Look at your face as you're talking about this. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. When I asked you what it felt like, okay, your face got even the smile engaged even bigger. and it just kind of beamed through you. Okay.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, it really, when I stood in the ship, it was kind of happiness.
Oh, there you
I
go.
felt
Okay. Okay.
And I also came to my mind now, right now, that my local football team here in this area, it's called Viking.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So
Mhm.
you got a whole lot of things there that come from ancient heritage. Okay.
Yeah.
Come from your country, comes from your love of shipping vessels, comes from a deep level of love and appreciation, admiration, reverence for your family. And like you said, how father, grandfather, how they suffered so that you could have this really good life. And they did the hard things so that your life could be better. So you're having that love and respect for that. So you combine all that together, and then you actually use the term happiness. It gives me that feeling of happiness. Okay, now what I just did by asking you these questions were technically why questions. Okay, why do you like stepping on that Viking ship? What is it about that? And what is it about your family? What is it about your country's heritage? All those things. But I kept asking why, for you to finally get all the way through that. And you said, you know what? All of those things combined together, they inspired me because it made me happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now.
Yeah, it's a great way to do it, because you kind of reminds me new thing, a new perspective that I didn't thought of before.
Sure.
So it's a really effective method you are doing there, Steve.
Well, and now I'm using this as an example because the only way we learn is when we actually get to be involved. And you want to make sure that any time that you are doing a process like that, that it's sincere, right? So the sincere objective that I had is I want to understand specifically in Steiner's life, what inspired you. And I happen to know a starting point because I had seen your new picture on Facebook. So that is a similar way that you can do with other people, because you are asking them to tell you what is meaningful to them without having to go, can you tell me what's meaningful to you? Because if you say that, that doesn't necessarily trigger it. You follow me? You got to get deeper into someone. Why is that? Why did you take that picture? Where was it at? What was it about that? What inspires you? And what happens is they start giving you little pieces that they haven't necessarily put together themselves. And if you keep asking why questions, they keep going a little deeper and a little deeper. In your case, it was family heritage. It was appreciation for the suffering that they went through. It was, you know, your country admiration. It was a local team also named the Vikings. It's your love of the shipping vessels. What you just painted for me was what inspires you specifically. Okay. Now, if I were to take those same things and let's say hand them to Sabrina, that might not work for her. Okay. I'm looking at what we decide was the color behind you. Is that pink orange?
It's orange, but half my office is hot pink.
Okay. All right. So if I were to,
and I have a lot of plants in my office that you probably don't. I collect fig plants. They're my favorite, and I have a whole bunch of succulents. So it's kind of like that break, like when you have so much to do and your mind is like focused on so many different things.
Right.
I'll pause and water my plants.
There you go. Okay. Now look at the way her face changed. Okay. So as you're communicating with people, she's talking about a specific color of the door behind her. Then she tells you that what the rest of her office is painted in. She tells you about that she loves plants, specifically fig plants and succulents. And what she does as a practice to take her breaks during the day, she goes and waters all of her plants because that gives her what? Can you see what happens to her face when she talks about that? That's happiness. It's joy, right?
It gives me it just kind of makes my mind more at ease, and it
Sure.
gives me more clarity. I can go back and focus. I mean, or I'll go outside and
Sure.
feed my birds outside, or
Mhm.
I'll walk my dogs or pet my dogs. So,
But notice the deal is that what motivates one person has no inspirational motivation to someone else. And then what happened in the last session, I was talking to Nisa, and she was telling me about not only a trip that she took to Montenegro and how she got up every morning and she was going through the actual recipe of her, I think you had lemon water, and then you had turmeric in there, and you put some pepper, and you told me why you put the pepper in the turmeric. And then you created this really great morning explanation of how she had taken these canoe trips in Zimbabwe down the Zambezi River, and how she described it all, okay? And the detail of that is something that inspires Nisa. And that's different than the succulents and the plants and the feeding of the birds that inspire Sabrina, and the being part of the Viking heritage and living in Norway that inspires Steiner. And my story about climbing, 10 miles up into a mountain, up Tumalo Falls. So why I'm giving you these examples is in order to help individuals break through to that next level, you have to communicate with them about what inspires them. And many times people haven't taken the time to realize, what are those things? Is it water? Is it being out in nature? Is it a certain artist that painting or music or poetry or whatever? What is it? And when you ask those questions, what you're doing is you're connecting at the deepest level, because all of those things have one thing in common. They make the other individual happy when they experience them. People don't take enough time, because life is so disruptive and distracting, and they don't take time to stop, get back to their moment, be present, and take those extra efforts during a week, during a day, to go out and do those things that do what? Reconnect you with that feeling of happiness, okay? So when you help someone go back in time and remember an event and how it made them feel, then what you're doing is you're helping them connect to meaning. You're helping their life become full of meaning or meaningful. I don't know.
I did have a connection with what Steiner was saying about the Viking ship.
Okay.
I did connect with him or what we were discussing, because one of my favorite paintings is The Scream by Edward. What is it? Edward Munch?
Monk.
Yeah, Munch. He's from Norway. He's Norwegian.
Okay. Outstanding. Okay.
And
so
I
there
love
is a
that
connection.
picture. Yeah.
Okay.
So I thought about that picture when he was on the Viking ship.
And
yeah, because it was some time I spoke to you, I think, and I saw or one of your live video. I think I saw I saw the picture behind you, and I spoke to you after, and then we had a discussion about it, because I have been Sabrina and me have been talking a lot of from time to time without these sessions.
So the thing that we want to focus on is there are the commonalities, like what we found here between Sabrina and a particular painting of a Viking ship that was done by our Norwegian artist. So there are those crossovers, but my point is when you get to the stage that we're talking about, is you have to be asking other people what's meaningful to them, without telling them something sterile that, by the way, I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions so I can find out what's meaningful to you. that disengages the brain. Okay. And they're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a second. What are you trying to do here? Are you playing mind games? No, that's, so the point is you have to be sincerely interested in why someone else has a picture or a painting or a certain color in their background, like Sabrina has, or the discussion that Nisa had about having this experience going down a river and, where they slept in the mosquito net and how they might wake up in the morning before dawn and, they hear, a hippo near them or something like that. And I could literally create in my mind a similar imagination, not a real life experience, because she's recalling something that she experienced. I'm having to imagine something I haven't. So my point is when someone is in that flow, in that zone, you are able to find out what is the thing in life that brings them happiness. And for you to help someone move past a limiting part of their life, telling someone, hey, you just need to suck it up, or you need to be tougher, or you need to stop crying, and all those kind of things. Those are negative reinforcements. They don't work unless you're in the Marine Corps. And they only work because, the drill sergeant has a gun that will shoot you if you don't move fast enough. I'm being facetious only slightly. So my point is in the real world, in civilian environments, let's call it, in places that you're trying to help other people, take the time to find what is deeply interesting to someone else, and then spend the time asking the why type of questions and watch what happens to them as they start unfolding or blossoming into what inspires them, to what is meaningful for them. Because no one does that. No one cares enough about someone else to become sincerely and deeply interested with their life, with why is that book sitting back here, and why is that book sitting back here, and why is the motto up here, live the story you want to tell. When you see someone's background, those are things that are there telling you markers about what's important to them, and you can become meaningfully, sincerely interested by asking them questions that help them remember to be present. Okay, that's what we're talking about. How do we help other people? So we've got to jump to our next 30-minute call. So we're going to do the last one today in our 90-minute Better Each Day program. So check your chat. That'll take you to the next one called the P5. And I will see you there in about 30 seconds. All right. Thanks for being here.